Hi, are you an author in the middle of self-publishing your next book? Somewhere along the process, you've probably heard about creating an audiobook. You've been encouraged to make an audiobook. You know friends who've made the investment in creating an audiobook, but you can't bring yourself to get started because getting into the technical weeds just seems too daunting. But what if we could take that all away? What if we could remove 90% of the technical barriers, so all you would have to do is show up to the microphone and record? Or maybe you don't want to record your own audiobook. That's totally fine too. We have an experienced team of professional narrators that would love to audition for your audiobook. Our Done For You service guarantees that you will have a professionally produced audiobook ready for commercial release. If you're ready to get started today, please click the link below and schedule a free call. We can't wait to hear from you and to get started on your project.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement podcast. I'm author Stephen Neariest. With me, as always, is my best friend and publisher, Susan Gabriel. Hi, Susan. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to wish Happy Mother's Day out there to all the mothers. I hope everything has gone well. You've had some good food and some people who absolutely love and adore you out there. You're a mother, right, Susan?
Yes, and a grandmother. So let's
And a
make sure
grandmother.
and include grandmothers in that too. So happy Mother's Day and Grandmother's Day. Because you can't get to be a grandmother unless you're a mother.
That's very true. That's very, very true. I understand that your kids called you and sent you flowers today. Is that correct?
I had one sent me Happy Mother's Day text, and the other one sent me flowers. And they live in another state. They live in Washington State, and I live in Texas. So I don't get to see them very often, but it was really nice to hear from them today.
Very nice. Very nice. So, again, happy Mother's Day out there to everybody. We have somebody on the show who is also a mother, and she also said she's a twin. So that's very cool. She is a very special guest. And I know I'm not going to say this correctly to start. Her name is Jeannette Schorfheide. I
You
think
said it
I got
right.
that correct.
That was
Did I say it
perfect.
right? All right, let's
Yes,
bring
just
Jeanette to the stage.
like a good German. Sounded good.
There we go. Jeanette, hi, how are you today?
Hi, I am doing great. Like I mentioned earlier, my allergies are a little crazy because we did sit outside for a while today, but I am doing very well and I'm so happy to be here. Happy Mother's Day, Susan.
And you as well.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day to you. Understand that you got to see your kids today, is that correct?
I did. My son and daughter-in-law happen to be down even farther south than what we are in Illinois overnight. So they were able to stop in before they went back to central Illinois. And our daughter just lives a few miles away. So she came over and we got to eat lunch outside. We grilled and it was a really good day.
Yeah, what did you have?
We had sliders and grilled
Ah,
asparagus and fries
nice.
and sweet potato chips. Or sweet
Wow, that sounds really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm getting kind of hungry now.
Sorry, I asked there, Stephen.
That's okay. No, food
Yeah,
food is always momentous during any kind of holiday, and
yeah.
it's
My husband cooked lunch or dinner today. It was nice. He cooked air air fried. I think he did an air fry of the chicken. And it was really good. And a cauliflower and broccoli with cheese sauce on it. And the best part was he bought one of those, those like Boston cream pies that you can buy in the freezer section. I love those things. Those are
nice.
so good. So it was very nice. So I had a good Mother's Day.
Well, before we get started, it looks like you have a fan. Kathy says you're looking good.
Great.
Thank you, Mom.
Oh,
Oh, that's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
very
Happy
nice.
Mother's
Well,
Day again, Mom.
Yes,
happy
happy
Mother's
Mother's
Day,
Day.
Mom.
And thanks for watching with us today.
Yeah.
We are with Jeanette Schorfheide.
Yes.
So you had to think about it.
Good.
The author of the book,
Good.
The Calling Tree. Now, this is a journal. Is that correct?
It is. It's a poetry journal is
Poetry
what
journal.
I believe we call it.
Mhm.
I I started writing poetry as a way of coping with loss when I was in high school. Some friends who were killed in car accidents, and just since then, things that rhyme and sometimes not pop into my head, and a lot of my stress, a lot of my strong emotions are what get written down. And then journaling, we started journaling about 19 years ago. My dad, or I guess actually it'll be almost 20 years ago. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And one thing that my mom had given all of us was a journal to write down things that we were grateful for. So every day that we are grateful for, which was a blessing during that time. But I think all of us have maintained that journaling, if not the gratitude, at least some form of journaling. And I also use that with students in my school. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we combined them.
Is that what inspired you to write this book?
My family strongly encouraged. I believe originally I told Susan, or no, I don't think it was Susan. I think it was an interview I did with a local TV station's website.
Uh-huh.
I want to say forced, but my family told me I have to say strongly encouraged. um,
Uh-huh.
throughout
Yeah.
time, yeah, throughout
Yeah.
time, people have had very strong positive reactions to what I've written, and
Uh-huh.
my family just felt like it was time that I shared it with other people. So I agreed. I'm not
Mhm.
one who does well with being in the limelight or taking center stage, and so this has been hard, but I'm glad I did it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And was your sister Robin one of those people?
Yes,
Aha.
absolutely.
Yes. Well, we'll be talking about Robin during this interview because I know Robin. She was my business coach for 6 months, and so I got to know her fairly well. And she probably got to know me better than I got to know her. But so I had to tell her all my secrets and all of my problem areas to work on. And she was great. She was really good. I highly recommend her. So if anybody's listening and needs a business coach, Robin Graham, she's great. But we are going to use this time also to find out a little bit more about Robin. So hang in there. We'll get some
So,
stories
So
from
glad I'm
you.
going first.
mhm.
But she can get back at you.
Oh, this is true.
So I understand you're a twin, is that correct?
I am. So there were four of us girls. Robin is the oldest. I will go publicly and say she's the oldest. And then I have a twin, and then we have a baby sister.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
So
and
middle child twins.
middle child twins. Can you imagine what my poor parents had
Wow.
to deal with?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Hey, happy Mother's Day again, Mom. You did a great job with them.
Now, growing up, um, you're not identical twins, correct?
No, we didn't get to have any of those fun pranks on people.
How was that growing up? Was that, I mean, somebody who's the exact age, going through, sure, parties, school functions, everything like that had to be different for you guys?
It I have a built-in best friend. You know, growing up with somebody who you literally have known your entire life, pre-birth, all the way through,
Yeah.
right? Um, she is my built-in best friend. Um,
Mhm.
but are so night and day in our interests and the types of people like that we are friends with and things like that. So a lot of times we were invited to the same things, but there were times where we were not, and we were both okay with that. We didn't always do the same sports. We had a very small parochial school growing up, and so
Uh-huh.
we were in the same class always until high school. But it really was more, our bond is special,
Mhm.
but it, because we are so different, it was really more like just another sister, minus that extra bond that we feel towards each other.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Speaking of school, you are a public school counselor.
I am.
Tell us about being a public school counselor.
I am actually in my 29th year. So
That's a lot.
I actually went to college to be an educator. And during my junior year, the graduate assistant where I worked said, "Hey, I have a year and a half and then I'm graduating. Do you want to take over and be the graduate assistant? They want you to take over for, when I'm gone." And so I was like, okay, sure. I didn't feel like I was ready to be an adult yet anyway. So I did school a little longer. So I kind of followed her footsteps and went into counseling. And it's such a rewarding and trying job all at the same time.
Yeah, I bet.
To help students see their potential, to help them find what they want to do, to see that light bulb go on, to also see those students who struggle in some way, whether it's relationships, whether it's classroom, whether it's they don't have self-confidence or self-esteem, and to watch them grow and to watch them figure things out. I tell people a lot that junior high and middle school are my favorite age group because little kids just want to be there and they love everybody. And the high school students almost have it figured out. Not quite, but almost. But they're at that point where they don't want the help.
Yeah.
And the junior high students are the ones who think they have it all figured out. And you can see when they figure out that they really don't know it all.
Yeah.
Then have those conversations with them and watch them really get to understand the world. That is my favorite age group.
Nice. Now, have you been a school counselor for 29 years?
I went straight into school counseling, and then I've lost track of the years now. But towards the middle of my career, there was a reduction in force in my school. And so they were releasing people, and I had to teach for 2 years. And then went back into the other counselor at the time, took over the counseling responsibilities. Then he retired, and I've been the sole counselor for our K through 12 district for the last 16 years, I believe it is.
Wow.
How is it different from counseling versus teaching as far as your approach to students?
Teaching you see them every day. We're on a straight schedule. Some schools run on a block schedule. So ours is straight. So we see our students every day. I feel like I got a chance to get to know all students a little better because I saw them all every day. But the relationship was very much, all right, you're in my classroom. You have to follow the rules. You have to do your homework. You have to take the test. Yes, I want to talk to you. I want to know who you are. But I still have to make sure that you're meeting the standards that are set for this subject area. Where with counseling, I get to have a lot more of that interpersonal relationship with them. I get to really know their story and support them in a different way than teachers have the time to do.
Yeah. What subject did you teach?
I taught physical education and health, and then a personal development class. That was my favorite because I got to create whatever I did with it.
Yeah. So what's personal development? I've never taken a class like that.
So we did a little bit of life skills. So in 6th grade, now students a lot of times can't use an analog clock. So we actually relearned telling time on an analog clock. We went back through how to count money. A lot of times now, debit card or credit card, and that's what they see when they go shopping. So we would go back through how, if I give somebody a 20 and what I owe is $16.50, what should I be getting back? And we would count out the change. We did a lesson on sewing, and I taught them whip stitch and how to sew buttons onto something. We talked about study skills. We did career exploration. So it was just a lot of overall. My favorite was the baseball game. They they had to help cook a meal or help clean a room, or if they did it by themselves, it was considered a home run. So there were different things that they could do to get a base hit or a double or triple or a home run.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
they had to, after a week, return that so I could grade what they
hmm
did or how they did and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Nice.
think that would be a fun age because they're still young enough that you can have fun with them, not thinking that they're too old to, kind of play around.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but critical skills like that should be mandatory for kids to just learn
hmm
things.
Mhm.
Learning to count money. Whenever I go to the gas station, I always like to make my purchase to be an even number. And I know how to get to $1 from anywhere between a penny and 99 cents. And I can do it in, a second. And when I do it, these people are like amazed by it. They're just like, "Oh, you're so smart." Like it is
Yeah.
not that smart. It is just knowing
No.
how to get to $1 from any number in between a penny and 99 cents.
Yeah. The
It's
And
society we live in now just is not conducive to either reading a face of a clock, face of a clock, or to counting change. I mean, it's just unbelievable the kinds of skills we learned as children. I mean, young children that a lot of older kids now don't even know. So
yeah.
it just amazes me.
I
yeah,
was recently asked, what is the biggest struggle that I see in education right now?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I think they were surprised by my answer. I think they thought I was going to say discipline because that seems to be a
Uh-huh.
lot of people's first
Oh,
response. But
right.
for me, it's not. It's technology, not
hmm
the use of technology as far as helping students learn, but or that it breaks down all the time. It's the fact that we have our first official generation of students coming through our schools who were raised with tablets and computers and cell phones.
hmm
And the
Yeah.
majority of what they do for communication is typing and sending pictures. So it's
hmm
that technology is creating a new society where
Yeah.
they don't know how to sit and have a conversation like what we're doing right now. That's the
Right.
struggles I think that I see the most in a school.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I
So that
imagine so.
critical piece of learning to listen and how to talk and how to control your tone, how to react appropriately to things. It's
hmm
a big part of what we have to
Yeah.
teach kids now.
And COVID probably didn't help any either because that made it even less likely that people were getting together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a generation that's probably going to suffer for a while with various symptoms of all of the lack of social interaction
Yeah.
for so long. And, other things like reliance on technology, like try to figure out a math problem without grabbing a computer or a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
I
it's
Potentially, but
it's hard.
I also think technology is going to help us in a lot of ways, and these kids are going to be the ones that are going to know it back and forth, and they're going to be the ones that are going to have to teach people as they come along. Because eventually we've got to evolve into that society where technology is doing, making things easier for us and making it so that it's, different from things. And I mean, us growing up, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have all that. So we relied on our skills to be able to play outside or to form imagination or to, do things completely different. And kids nowadays are able to, they're able to navigate through the internet, but
Mhm.
they are talking in hieroglyphics. I have noticed that the emojis have gone from simple little things to animated little characters that you're just kind of like, okay, we're
Mhm.
back to the Egyptian times and hieroglyphics.
they are creating
Yeah,
their own language for sure
yeah,
when it comes to technology.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. So, kind of heard a rumor that you maybe kind of want to retire in 2029. Nothing's official. If you're out there watching, don't freak out. It was just something that kind of came up in passing, but um,
Yes. My goal right now is to retire in December of 2029. Um, I'm I'm not 100% set on that. So right now, there's a good chance I will be. I know my son and daughter-in-law jokingly say that they won't have grandchildren for me until I retire, so I can come live with them and help them because they have no idea how to raise children. Not sure that's going to happen for them. So if they're watching, make other plans. But but obviously, I'll do everything I can to help. But yeah, right now, 2029 sounds like a good time. A lot of the teachers that I started. So this is my 22nd year in my school, my current school district. And a lot of the teachers who are my age, who I started there with, are retiring in 2028. But because I did grad school for a year and a half, I'm a little behind them. And so I watching all of them start talking about 4 years from now, 4 years from now, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm so close to that. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't determine the future. God will let me know when it's my time to go. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would be funny if you did retire in 2029 and every kid that you've ever had a counseling session with, you go back and find out if they followed through with.
Yeah. With their goals.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ever have anybody come back and tell you, hey, from your advice, I was able to do this or go do that or overcame this?
I actually just talked about this the other day. I had a student once who he was one of those students who was so extremely intelligent and was not always successful in class. And I knew this kid had such an amazingly bright future, but he wasn't doing homework. He was misbehaving in class. And I honestly think part of it was because he was bored because he was so intelligent. And so his senior year, it was, if not every day, at least a couple times a week. Hey, how are you doing in this class? Are you getting that grade up? Are you passing this? Hey, I looked at your grades. You need to do better. And he went off to college and came back and he said, I wish I'd listened to you sooner. He told other students who he was still friends with who were following his footsteps and said, hey, listen to her. You need to pass this classes. You need to take this serious because when you get to college, if you don't know how to study now, it's going to hurt you once you leave home. So
yeah.
So they learn.
That's rewarding. Makes it much more rewarding.
Yes, it is.
Vindication on things that we do in life are huge rewards to us, and they make us feel good about ourselves. And there always comes that point of I'm doing this for a reason, and then somebody shows up and shows you that reason, and you just feel good about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really nice to know, you feel like you're in the right occupation, that you're following what God had prepared for you. You're involved in doing your purpose. Your purpose is being fulfilled, and that's always a really good feeling. To know that you're doing exactly what God has created you for. And but if people find that, then they're going to shine at that occupation. They're going to really, do well. They're going to affect a lot of people, and it's going to be a real positive for them. And speaking of that, your sister, when I started this my business, I don't know how I ran across information about her, but I did, and I was convinced, and I don't know whether it was her advertising or something else, but I felt like I really needed guidance in the beginning, and so I hired her as a business coach, and it was she had some really great advice, a lot of different things that she had me do, things that I hadn't thought of. things I hadn't thought to do, and things that I found that were important to focus on, that I hadn't really thought about either. So it was very, very helpful. Helped me to really create a foundation for the business and make it more successful in the long run. So I appreciate that. But I'm sure there's some stories you could tell about Robin that we might be interested in hearing about, maybe from when you were children. Did she ever get into trouble?
We all got into a little bit of trouble. Yes, we did. The story that I can think of, which is probably the worst one to tell, but it's the only one popping into my head right now. She and I, not together. We had very different friends, but she and I both had decided that we were going to try drinking with our friends one night, and
Mm.
we both got caught by mom and dad. And this was the night before we had to sit in the car for, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 hours to go to an overnight family reunion the next day.
Oh,
Neither one of us felt well. And then we got to the hotel, and my dad and uncle and cousin were all sitting there talking about alcohol, or my dad had let them know. And
yeah,
so they
yeah.
just kept talking about things. And at one point, they brought up tequila and the worm and eating the worm. And I thought I was going to be sick at that point. It was awful. And I don't think she
Yeah,
felt a whole lot better that day.
yeah. So, so it was one way of talking you out of doing a lot of drinking in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think either of us did that again. Not like that
Uh,
anyway.
yeah.
That was bad.
Did you try
That's
smoking? Did you smoke also?
I did try smoking.
Uh-huh.
Not, I don't know that I did in high school. I might have, but
Mhm.
I know in college I had a roommate who smoked, and
Uh-huh.
so every once in a while I would try it. But I have what's called reactive airway disorder. It wasn't diagnosed
Uh-huh.
as a child, but I can remember when I ran track, especially in the spring, I would wheeze from time to time.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it was always like, oh, I'm just out of shape because it's the spring and I'm just starting to get back
Hmm.
into track season.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's what I have is reactive airway disorder, which is similar to asthma, but it's only brought
Mhm.
on by my allergies. And
Ah,
so,
yes.
yeah, so I learned very quickly with that smoking is not something you should do. Not to mention, I really did not enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Me neither. Yeah. I tried it too in college, and it was very unpleasant. And I have asthma, mild asthma, so it was definitely something I should, I had to learn to stay away from.
Yeah.
And I was grateful when they came up with the laws that, they had to restrict smoking to certain areas.
Mhm.
And the more restricted it got, the more areas that I got to go to because, when it wasn't restricted, I had to stay out of bars and some restaurants. You know how that is. Somebody's going to have restrictions, either people who smoke or the people who don't smoke. But,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things.
Yeah. I always have two inhalers, one on my bicycle and one in my purse.
Hmm.
So there's always one
Uh-huh.
with me.
Yeah. 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 Good idea.
We'll get into the
Yeah.
bike talk here in just a little bit. We're going to jump ahead
Yeah.
a little bit. But I kind of want to go back because in your bio, you had made mention of things that you wanted to, after retirement, have in. So, what are career goals after retirement? Because some of those sounded really, really interesting.
I kind of feel like I need to look at my bio to see what I said. No. I, I don't think this is actually in the bio or on the book. But I keep joking with my husband that I'm going to leave him for a week at a time and travel. He does not cycle like I do. I keep telling him I'm just going to travel by myself, and I want to ride my bike in each of the continental states.
Wow, that's a very ambitious goal.
I don't know that I'll obtain it completely, but I would absolutely, especially out the northeast part of the
Yeah.
country, and then the very
Oh,
far
yeah.
west. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I followed
It'd be
actually this
beautiful.
young child and his dad. They started a trek to go from the state of Washington to New
Mhm.
York on their bicycles.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he, like, watching that, I was like, I can do that someday. I can, not all the time. I would just take trips to each of the states with my bicycle. But
Yeah, right.
hopefully someday be a grandma to something more than fur and 4 legs, and
Uh-huh.
just relax. Just relax. Maybe find a second part-time phase of my life, work a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. Well, we could always use an editor.
I do love to read.
Oh, well, we'll have to get together.
Absolutely. And it's funny because Susan and I, when we were going through the editing process, and we were talking about how sometimes we can miss things. And the book that I'm currently reading, one of my favorite, he's a British author. It's the
Uh-huh.
whole murder mystery type thing. And
Yeah.
the very second page of this one had a big like you could see, like it was obvious that there was a typo. And I was just like, oh no, it's only the second page. But
Yeah, that kind of alarms me when I find a typo really early on in a book.
But when I was in grad school, my boss would make me proofread the letters before she sent them out. So I worked for the
Mhm.
alumni house where we raised money for scholarships on campus. So
Mhm.
she would
Yeah.
send letters out to the large donors, and she would make me proofread all of her letters, starting with the last word and going to the
Uh-huh.
first word. Because
Yeah.
that way, with the brain, if
Yep.
it was supposed to be a the,
Yeah,
would not mistake it for they or vice versa.
exactly. Right. Right. Because your brain will really play tricks on you for sure.
Yes.
My first editing job was in college. My psychology professor was writing a book, and I don't know how she picked me, but felt very fortunate that she did. And she'd asked me to be her editor, and so I got to edit her book, and that was my first credit. Um, was I actually got to see my name edited by Wilma Dickinson. That was my name back then.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that was my name. I changed my name. I changed my first name. And then, of course, I got married since then a couple times. Actually, no, I was Wilma Stoliker back then. So that's what it would have said. Wilma Stoliker. Stoliker was my middle name. I mean, my maiden name. And then I got married the first time, but I got married really young. Then it was Dickinson. And then I got married again, and I like this name. Gabriel, I think, is a nice name, but Stoliker was a name. Those German names are long, as you know, and kind of hard for people to pronounce. So it's always kind of nice to have a shorter name. But
Yes.
that was my very first, and um, I'd forgotten all about that. But it's it's kind of interesting, isn't it, to see your name on a book?
It is. It is.
Uh-huh.
And
It's
our
a
school
fun
library,
experience.
it is. It was, and Susan, you made this experience so easy. I mean, it was just okay, here's some questions. What do you want with that?
Mhm.
This. And if I had
Mhm.
questions, you answered them immediately. You spoke on the phone with my husband about some questions that he
Yeah,
had. I mean, you didn't
yeah.
discredit him as a part of this process, which I think was beautiful. Um, it when I tell people that we started in January
Hmm.
and it hit
Right.
Amazon April 1st, they look at me like there's no way it went that fast. So,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
was so smooth,
yeah.
such an easy process. And you have been just absolutely a blessing through this whole process.
Yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed editing your book. I like poetry. I write poetry too. So, that makes me maybe a little bit more of the right person to be publishing poetry books. And and it was fun to kind of pick out some of the pictures to go with your poems. and to put the whole thing together. It was just fun. I really had a good time.
And I think Robin sent me to you because
Yes.
she had worked with you, but I think she knew that hit part of you.
Mhm.
But then the
Yeah.
Christian side of that, because a lot
Mhm.
of my poetry does relate to my faith. And so I
Right.
think that she, having sent me to you, was yet another blessing through
Mhm.
this whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. That really was. And some of the poetry that you have in there that is faith-based is just really beautiful. And I love those. I love those kinds of poems. I write a lot of those kinds as well. And uh, I have this company because I started with wanting to publish my poetry and started looking for illustrators to illustrate my poems. And I got sidetracked. I got sidetracked and I never did publish my poetry, not yet. I still plan to, but not yet. I just ran across some great illustrators and then I ran across Steve and we, it just, I don't know how God just led me into the path of publishing, but I'm really glad he did. It's so much fun. It's the most fun I've ever had. And I love books. I've always loved books and to be surrounded by books. And especially, I always buy the books that, my authors have written. I always buy a copy because so my house is now filled with books that, I published. It's really fun.
Excellent.
I love that.
So,
Yeah.
speaking of God, what role has God played in your life?
Uh, well, we grew up in a parochial school. My sisters and I did. And so we've always had that presence. My parents, very strong, they were involved in the church. I don't even know all of the different positions that they held over the years, but my dad coached our sports teams at the parochial school. And my dad, my husband's sitting here next to me. He may have to correct me. I think it's 23 times my dad read through the entire Bible from beginning to end. And
Oh,
he read multiple versions of the
Yeah.
Bible during his
Yeah.
lifetime. So we've always had that strong influence from our parents. But then
Mhm.
there have been times where we've had some hardships. And, my husband, I can remember one time my husband was laid off, and I think it might have been the second time. And at that point, I was so angry. And you really do go through that grieving process with something like that, as well as when you
Mhm.
lose someone to a death. And I went through that whole phase of, well, God's punishing us. God doesn't love us. Why would God do this to us? And you have those conversations with other faith-based people, with other Christians who then say, but let's look at the other side of this. And what could you get from this? And
Mhm.
Robin is very much my rock when it comes to these things. She and I just last week had a conversation about something I'm going through right now. And she said, think about the perseverance and think about what you're going to get from this experience and what will you
Mhm.
take with you into the future. And,
Yeah.
she very much related
That
it to,
sounds like Robin.
yeah, it is. And she said,
Yeah.
think about Jonah and his
Mhm.
experience. And I started to cry because I was like, that's how I feel like Jonah must have felt. But had a
Yeah.
really good conversation. But then I also have been on multiple positions at our church, serving
Mhm.
in different positions in the church. When I was in high school, I taught Sunday school. Just had my last session with my Sunday school students today. I won't see them the last 2 weeks because I'll be gone. So I
Mhm.
still teach confirmation Sunday school class. So
Uh-huh.
I don't.
Yeah.
I have had people ask. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how the question was. I know last week during Sunday school class, there were only 2 students out of the 10. And
Mhm.
so I said, you know what? Let's put the lesson aside. You're asking me some questions. Let's focus on that. Let's just talk. And
Yeah.
during that, they talked about different religions or
Mhm.
how people know to trusting God. And we somehow atheism was brought up.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I told them, I can't imagine going through the hardships that I have in my life, loss,
Mhm.
job changes, job loss, even just sometimes when our children hurt, we hurt for them. And having
Yeah.
God carry us through all of that, I just can't imagine not having that, not
Mhm.
believing in something so amazing and great and wonderful. So I credit it completely to my parents raising us that way, and
Yeah.
the fact that God is always there with me. And I
Yeah.
know that no matter what I'm going through.
So you mentioned you taught confirmation. So
Yeah.
I assume it was a Lutheran church
Yes.
because I was also raised Lutheran. My
Okay.
father also read the Bible every single day from, he ended up reading, I don't know how many times through. He was responsible to make sure that we got to church every single Sunday, so we never missed. And I am so grateful for that background and having been forced to learn all of those Bible verses in confirmation class
Yeah.
because that saved me, in later as an adult because those verses would come back to me. And I'm just grateful for that. It's one good thing about that church, just because they force you to do that.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
And we have a new associate pastor at our church who is in charge of the 7th and 8th grade confirmation. And we were talking about
Uh-huh.
how he wants to change it a little bit and really have a strong curriculum. And I said, well, what do you need us to do with 5th and 6th grade students as they
Mhm.
prepare to come into? And he said, they need to know the Bible, not just the books of the
Yeah.
Bible, but be able to relate different things to
Mhm.
stories. And so, like today, I was able to bring up the rich man and the poor man who died, and
Yeah.
how the rich man went to hell, Lazarus, and he said,
Mhm.
not Lazarus. Now I've got myself confused, but the rich man went to hell and he said, but
Uh-huh.
God, let me go back and warn my family. Let me tell them
Right.
to believe. And God said, there are prophets and you didn't listen to them. Pretty
Mhm.
much your family has to make that decision. So
Yeah.
the lesson we were
Right.
talking about and the parables that I was going through with them, I was able to relate it to other stories because I
Yes.
learned them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a blessing. It really is. So
And things that you
speaking,
learn, things that you learn through your life, things that you can uh, atone to for experience, things that make you take a step back, that realize, okay, now I understand the uh, reason why I went through that, or now I
Mhm.
can understand why I felt the way I felt. God's been with you your whole life and you've been around God. I'm sure God is with you when you're on your bike. And while you're on your bike, you do something called a century ride.
I have completed 2 centuries. So, when most people they hear century, and of course they think 100 years.
Yes,
But they don't relate
exactly.
100 miles then to a bike ride. And then when I
Yeah.
explain that to them, they look at me like I'm crazy. So, but a century ride is 100 miles.
Now,
So,
is it
Yeah.
all done in one day? Is that done over the course of?
yes, it is. So the first time I did it, I had a friend with me. And so we broke it up into 4 25-mile increments. And
Mhm.
it wasn't horrible. But the second time I did it, I did 40, 40, 20.
Mhm.
And that was so much easier because I knew once
Oh.
I got on my bike that last 20 miles, it was only 20 miles. And I actually, at one point, I called my mom because it was a day where it was windy and it got really hot. And I said, I don't even know that I can finish these last 6 miles. And she said, yes, you can.
Mm.
You've gone this far. You can finish the rest of the ride. And so
Good
I
mom.
have a holder on my bike, so my phone sits on my handlebars, so I can talk
Mhm.
with people. And then I have a
Oh,
helmet with
that's
speakers.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my helmet has speakers, so my ears are always open for traffic and things like
Uh-huh.
that. So, but
Yeah.
she was like, "You've come this far. You can do these last few miles. You've got it in you. You can do this." And so, I made it. But the breaks are. I usually do it in the fall so I can train all summer. So it
Uh-huh.
starts out like 45, 50 degrees. So I have long sleeves, long pants, and then I'll stop, refuel water, get some like energy gel or a snack or something, and put a short sleeve shirt on. And then by that
Uh-huh.
last part, I have on a tank jersey and shorts and refill and get more electrolytes and then head back out. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you do
Yeah.
like
That sounds
50 miles down and then 50 miles back, or do you go 100 straight out and somebody comes meet you 100 miles away, or how does that work?
Now, so we have what's called the Madison County Trails. They're about a half hour. The closest entrance for me is 15 minutes, but the place where when I've done my centuries that I go is about 30 minutes from where we live. And
Mhm.
they're nice because there's not traffic. They are
It's
trails.
just a bike path. Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's cool.
and so I'll set my course. I've been on them for years now. So I'll set my course depending on if I'm going to go 40 miles first or 25, whatever it is. And I'll do an out and back, and I'll go out and back. So that way I have everything packed in my car. So I have it right there with me.
Yeah.
Now, I did hit a
Yeah.
squirrel one time.
Oh. Oh no.
I,
Did the squirrel make it?
I think so. My cousin, who was cycling at the time, I haven't seen him at any of the group rides for a while now, but he came and met me he did about 26 miles with me. And we were heading back towards the car, and I never saw the squirrel. I just felt this big bump and then a big bump. And I was like, I looked at him, I said, "What was that?" He said, "You just ran over a squirrel." And I said, "What? Oh my gosh, where is it?" He said it ran off into the bushes. So I don't know what happened
Oh.
after that, but that's
Yeah.
actually very dangerous. I had posted it on a cycling group in Facebook, and somebody had posted a picture where they had actually hit a squirrel and it ripped the tire off of the bike. They had a massive crash.
Oh my.
So I was
Wow.
blessed. When you said God is with me on my bike, He is definitely with me on my bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So with everything coming up, the journal is out. You're looking toward the future of retirement, but the next year, where do you see yourself just in the next year?
I'm not sure yet.
We're coming
Right
up on summertime.
It's yes. Just getting through the last couple of weeks of school for a school counselor with transcripts for college students. I do a lot of the state reports for our school that will take me close to a week to do. So right now, I'm just focused on getting through the end of this year. We do have a small family reunion in July where Robin and her family will be home. And right now, I can't even think a year from now. I really can't.
I've actually noticed that with educators that their year is not what everybody else's year is. It's not January to January. It's
No.
September through May is their year. It's like when you say next year, you mean next school year, or do you mean next physical year? And it's like, oh, just
29 years. My husband and I were married 29 years in March, and I've been an educator for 29 years, and we still have that conversation. What do you mean by year?
you got married in March. I hope it was during spring break at the very least.
Actually, I was still in grad school. It was during the spring break.
Because that's the other thing about educators is that they base off of vacations. It's like, okay, that week in September is going to be fall break, and then you got winter break, and then you've got spring break, and then you've got summer break,
Yep.
and you've got all these little days in between where you break everything down. Like, okay, we can do something this weekend because they've got a 3-day weekend, or we can do something this weekend, or I'm not going to have time to see any of you guys because it's final weeks and just don't bother me at all.
Yes, you nailed it.
You think you were a teacher, Stephen?
I have a lot of teacher friends that I have tried to call during finals week, and they're just like, I don't mean to be rude, but stop calling me.
Yes.
My bad. My bad. Wanted to see if you ate. My bad. So, because we do a lot of children's books, one thing that I always like to ask anybody on our show is, would you give advice to your younger self? But I want to preface this with, because we have a lot of younger people that watch our show, give advice to them coming from your younger self.
Really, the best advice I can say, and it's funny because I just read about this also. I like to say, follow through with who you are and keep moving forward, but with that faith in God. We tend to say, believe in yourself, be true to yourself, things like that. And I find myself saying that a lot, but
Mhm,
we can't be true to ourselves unless we're true to God, unless we're
mhm.
living the life that God has planned for us. And
Right.
I can honestly say, I don't know that I knew that as a younger Jeannette
Mhm.
where I do
Yeah.
now. And I think looking now, being in a public school, I can't openly always talk about my faith. If somebody opens
Right.
the door, I'm going to walk through it, but I can't open that door. And so
Yeah.
if I can tell any other child in this setting, if you're going to be true to yourself and you're going to follow the dreams that you have, make sure you're listening for God's voice in all of that, because he definitely led me into the career that I'm in. I think
Mhm.
he led my family to strongly encourage me to publish this journal, which has led me into a little more confidence, a little more of living for God versus living for others. And I
Mhm.
think that we have to remember that we have to live for God first, and then who we are will continue to fall into place.
Right. Yes. Yes,
I
I
agree.
found that's so true.
And your spiritual journey, everybody out there that's watching and everybody out there that has watched, we always tend to talk about your spiritual journey is your own. We don't all have the same coming to God or the same beliefs or any of it that makes sense, except it makes sense to us personally. And we've all had our own journeys to go through. And it's okay. It's okay to be on that journey. You don't, just because your journey doesn't match my journey, doesn't mean that you're on the wrong road or I'm on the wrong road. We're all coming together, crossing these paths in lives, just discovering and growing and becoming more and doing things that God wants us to do rather than what
Mhm.
we think other people assume that we think what God is. And
Yeah.
that's incredibly powerful for people to know and to understand, is that your journey is your journey.
And I've done a lesson with staff and students. It's called the identity tree, and I took it from a speaker that I heard at a coordinator for a dual credit program with a local college.
Mhm.
And it's a tree that has, like, what is your religion or spirituality? What is your gender? What is your
Mhm.
hobbies or your talents? And things like that on each of those branches of the tree. And
Yeah.
when you look at, and then in those roots, you list your family. The roots of the tree are your
Mhm.
family or the people who have led you through your life. But when
Mhm.
you look at those, the branches of the tree, and I'm going to hold up my journal real quick, because even when you look, this was so beautifully done. But when you look at the
Mhm.
branches, everyone is different. Everyone is going a
Mhm.
different direction. And our lives are very much different. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to intersect at some point, or that God
Mhm.
still isn't a part of that. I told my mom yesterday, it still baffles me. We're all created in God's image, but yet we're all
Mhm.
so different. Like, what is God like that we are all in his image, but all so different?
Mhm.
And it makes us able to form our relationships then, because everybody brings a different piece to that relationship, like a
Mhm.
puzzle, and then we just fit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought of that too. You know what would God be like if we're in His image? And it's kind of hard to imagine. In some ways, it's hard to imagine. In other ways, when you start putting it all together, it's really beautiful to
Yeah.
think about all of us, somehow fitting into to being that image of God. And what a wonderful God He must be with all of the characteristics of all of the different people. And um, just I don't think that the God is the kind of let's say person, the entity that so many people make him out to be, that fatherly figure sitting on the throne and has no sense of humor or anything like that. I mean, I really think that he gave us a sense of humor. He
Mhm.
gave us an imagination, things that we think up that are fun to do. I mean, that came from God. That
Yeah.
didn't isn't just stuff that we came up with independently, without being in the image of God. So that's fun to think about. A lot of times I like to think and wonder all of the different, very different elements that have to be contained within what we would call God.
Yeah.
Right. And God and religion are two different things.
Yes, they are.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Religion is a community, and there are some very good things with community on there. But also for people out there who are going through their spiritual journey, who may not believe in religion or see the aspects of religion that they don't agree with, and so they push themselves away from all religions. It's the
Mhm.
spirituality, and it's the understanding of God, and it's understanding that He is there with us, and He believes in us, and He feels, and we're all going through that journey together. That is what makes it important, and that's where your journey needs to go to. Before we wrap up, is there anything you wish to share with our viewers about how they can get in contact with you, find out more about your books, and get educated on upcoming releases?
I'm not sure about future books. I actually shared something. So, my mother in law has been one of the most vocal people about me writing a book. Um,
Nice.
and of course, my husband and my children. Robin
Yeah,
has been one. My sisters are all very supportive, but Robin's a
yeah.
little more vocal about it, I think, especially after she published something herself. And then, of
Uh-huh.
course, my mom is very supportive, but my mom is also a very talented artist. So my mother-in-law said I should write a children's book. So I
Ah, yes, you
wrote
should.
wrote a poetry type um,
Ah,
story that I
uh-huh.
have shared with my mom, and I would love for my mom to be the illustrator for it. And
Wouldn't
so
that be wonderful?
we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. She's very busy helping. She is a paid employee of Robin's. She would have to work
Oh,
for me, but
uh,
she'll take care of me, I'm sure. Um,
yeah.
as far as with my current book, that can be found on Amazon, and I can be reached through Facebook, Jeannette, and Instagram, Jeannette.Schorfheide. And my name has been up on the screen a couple of times, but Schorfheide can be difficult to spell, and Jeannette is the
There you
very
go.
long version with two N's and two T's. But Jeannette.Schorfheide, I can be reached there. And I would love to hear, especially those, if you reach out and purchase the book, I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments on it.
Beautiful. We will definitely put all of your marketing onto the YouTube channel, the Apple channel, and the Facebook page. So anybody who can go and watch this afterwards will know how to get in contact with you. This has been an absolutely delightful interview with you. Jeanette, I want to thank you for coming on Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement. Because it is Mother's Day, I do believe that your mom is still out there. Kathy, do you want to say hello to her one more time before we go?
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. And I want to say to Susan and Steve, thank you so much for having me. And again, Susan, this process has been such a blessing having you in my corner and guiding me through. I have to say
Yeah,
thank you again.
yeah, it was a pleasure. It was fun and very rewarding.
Thank you.
You're most certainly very welcome. And hang around afterwards for a few minutes and we'll do a follow-up.
Okay.
What a fantastic interview on that one. Definitely an uplifting one for Mother's Day that
Yes,
this particular episode on. So we have actually gone over our hour a little bit. So I want to
mhm.
just reach out one more time to everybody and say thank you for watching another episode of Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement. As you know, all of our podcasts are sponsored by Soul Sunshine. Be sure to visit us at soulsunshine.com. They're also sponsored by Steve over at Audio Masters. So be sure to check him out if you need your book turned into an audio book. Well, Susan, thank you for another excellent week of everything. It's always nice to see you. It's always nice to do these. Happy Mother's Day to you again. And
Thank you.
you're gonna tell me the story of was it Wilma? You said it was?
Oh, I didn't tell you that story. Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
you
give you
never
the
told me that
rundown on that.
story. All
Yeah,
right.
well, it's
Tell me about that
entertaining.
later.
Yeah,
Definitely going to be entertaining. Well, thank you
yeah.
everybody for joining us. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. And we will see you guys next week on Shine with Curiosity and Encouragement. Have a great week.
Ever dreamed of
Bye.
seeing your name on the cover of a book? As a book publisher, we understand the challenges of self-publishing. If you're lost in the process, wondering about illustrators, book coaches, or formatting issues, worry not. At Soul Sunshine, we're here to guide you. Let's turn your dream into reality. Contact us to get started.